The CEO, Adrian Kahn, was the head of one of the largest multinational corporations in the city, a man whose name alone made investors tremble and whose fortune could buy almost anything in the world. Yet despite having everything, he felt a hollowness inside, for every woman he met only saw his money, his status, and his power, never the man behind it, and this constant exploitation left him weary of love and longing for something real, something pure, something untouched by greed. So one day, when his childhood friend suggested a blind date with a girl from a rural town, Adrian agreed but decided to conceal his true identity, dressing in worn-out jeans, an old shirt, and driving a beat-up second-hand car instead of his luxury vehicles, hoping to test whether someone could like him without knowing who he really was. And that was how his path crossed with Miriam, a simple village girl whose world revolved around her family, her small farm, and the happiness she found in little things. A girl who didn't know the language of stock markets or corporate wars but knew how to heal wounds with compassion and how to smile even when life was hard. And when Adrian first met her in the small tea shop of her town, he was shocked that she didn't seem impressed or disappointed by his modest appearance. Instead, she welcomed him with genuine warmth, speaking without pretension, serving him homemade food she had brought because she thought city men often skipped meals. And Adrian found himself captivated by her authenticity, the way she laughed freely, the way she listened, and the way her eyes carried kindness without judgment. So he kept returning, making excuses to see her again, walking with her through the golden fields, helping her fetch water, sitting beneath the stars in the quiet nights, things he had never done as a busy CEO. And with each passing day he fell deeper, realizing he had never truly lived until now, never truly smiled until her laughter filled the air. Yet at the same time a storm brewed within him, for he carried a secret as heavy as the empire he ruled, and he knew the longer he hid the truth, the more painful it would be when she discovered it. But still he feared losing this fragile, precious bond that money could never buy, and so he delayed. One day Miriam's younger brother fell ill, and with no proper hospital nearby, Adrian secretly used his influence to send the boy to a city clinic, disguising the payment as charity from a local trust. And when Miriam tearfully thanked him for arranging help, Adrian's heart twisted because he longed to tell her the truth, that he could give her and her family the world. Yet he remained silent, cherishing the fact that she valued him even when she believed he was poor, for her gratitude was not to a wealthy savior but to the simple man she thought he was, and that made it priceless. But destiny is cruel to those who hide too much, and soon cracks appeared in his disguise when a group of arrogant city men visited the town for land deals, mocking the villagers, and Adrian, unable to tolerate their disrespect toward Miriam, confronted them, his commanding aura slipping out unconsciously, his words sharp and authoritative like a man used to ruling boardrooms. And though he quickly tried to tone it down, Miriam noticed, wondering how a so-called poor man spoke like someone who held the world in his hands. Yet her trust in him was strong enough to silence her doubts for the time being. But suspicions grew when one evening Adrian's personal assistant arrived with urgent documents, mistakenly addressing him as "Sir," in front of Miriam, and though Adrian dismissed it quickly, Miriam's heart stirred with confusion, sensing he was hiding something monumental. The truth finally exploded one fateful weekend when Adrian invited Miriam to the city under the pretense of showing her around, but upon arrival she witnessed a grand corporate gala where Adrian stood at the center, dressed in a tailored suit, every powerful figure bowing to him, and cameras flashing as his name was announced as the CEO of Kahn Global Enterprises, the very man whose face appeared on magazines and news she had never paid much attention to before. And in that instant Miriam felt her world collapse, not because he was rich, but because he had lied, because the man she trusted with her heart had concealed the truth, making her question if the humble moments in the village were genuine or just a game to him. So she turned away with tears, retreating back to her small home, leaving Adrian shaken to his core. For days he tried to reach her, sending letters, standing at her doorstep, trying to explain that his love was real, that his disguise was only to protect himself and to test if she could see him beyond the wealth. But Miriam was terrified, not of losing him, but of the world he belonged to, a world of ruthless businessmen, glittering parties, media scrutiny, and endless pressure, a world where she, a simple rural girl, felt she could never survive, and so she pushed him away, though her heart secretly ached for him. Adrian, however, was not a man who gave up easily, not in business and certainly not in love, so he began spending more time in the village openly now, not as the hidden poor man but as himself, helping rebuild the school with company funds, arranging farming equipment for locals, not through donations but by working alongside them, showing Miriam that he was willing to be part of her world, not drag her into his, and slowly she saw the truth of his heart, that beneath the CEO mask was the same man who once carried water buckets with her, who once sat under the stars eating her homemade bread, and when her father's farm faced debt issues, Adrian refused to simply pay it off with a signature, instead guiding the family on how to improve crops, using modern techniques but letting them keep their dignity, and in these gestures Miriam realized his love was not about money, it was about effort, about sacrifice, about choosing her world even when he had a bigger one at his feet. Still, the biggest test came when the same city men who mocked the villagers before returned, this time trying to exploit the land for corporate gain, and Miriam stood firm against them, only to be threatened. But Adrian arrived with his full authority as CEO, shutting down the deal permanently, declaring the village under his personal protection, stunning both the outsiders and the villagers, and it was in that fiery moment Miriam saw that his power was not a curse but a shield when wielded for good, and she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, their two worlds could coexist. Adrian confessed again, this time without defenses, telling her he didn't need her to be polished or glamorous, that her simplicity was the very reason he fell, that he would trade every boardroom victory for her single smile, and at last Miriam, tears glistening, forgave him, her fear dissolving into trust as she whispered that she never despised him when she thought he was poor and she wouldn't despise him now that she knew he was rich, because love was never about the gold in his pocket but the gold in his heart. Their union was not easy. The city whispered, the media speculated, the high society mocked the CEO for choosing a rural girl instead of a model or heiress, but Adrian stood tall, hand in hand with Miriam, unshaken by their judgment, because for the first time he knew he had something more precious than an empire. He had love that couldn't be bought, and Miriam, once afraid of his world, now walked beside him bravely, teaching him that simplicity and sincerity could outshine any fortune, and together they proved that kindness was stronger than status, and that true hearts will always find their way home, no matter how far apart their worlds may seem.